Inflation at the grocery store has been ridiculous. Everybody knows it. It's gotten to be a kind of inescapable fact of life that stuff is getting too expensive. And it doesn't feel like it's really going to slow down. It feels like it's going to get worse, especially if the government starts putting in price controls or printing more money to bail us out of something else. Every time you print more money, the money becomes less valuable and the price of real things like food goes up. So what are you going to do about it and how? Back in 2016, I wrote a book called Grow or Die, The Good Guide to Survival Gardening, based on what we had learned from our backyard gardening over the years and trying to keep our family fed on a very tight budget. There were times when I was working any job that I could get. I was painting houses, I did some English tutoring for English as a second language. I did a lot of different bits and pieces just to try and make ends meet, and having a garden in the backyard that fed us was very useful. And we didn't have a lot of money to play around with complicated systems. So today I'm going to give you 3 tips on making sure that your garden feeds you if things get tough. And it looks like things are going to get tough, so pay attention. Number 1, keep it simple. Avoid crazy, complicated systems. You'll see these survival systems that are just ridiculously complicated. All these pipes and aquaponics and raised beds and greenhouses with automated this and automated that and automated this. Look, people survived. Even illiterate peasants survived with simple systems in the past, and you can too. Learn to grow with the rainfall. Learn to grow in your soil. Learn to grow simple crops that like your climate. Keep it simple. This is number 1, and this is very important. Don't get caught up in, I need to buy this, and I need to buy this, and I need to buy this, and I need to buy this. Think like somebody in an already collapsed state. What are people doing to feed themselves overseas? What did people do to feed themselves before you could just go on Amazon and buy something? So that's number 1. Keep it simple. And simplicity also is anti-fragile. So remember that. Complicated systems are fragile. Number 2, roots are your friends. Roots provide a lot of calories and are easy to grow. Think about root crops when you think about survival gardening. Don't think about a big field of wheat and going out there with a scythe. That may be appropriate in some situations, in some climates, but in general, you get a lot of yield out of roots and they fill you up. Think about potatoes, sweet potatoes, cassava, taro, turnips. There are a lot of roots that have a good amount of calories, that are pretty easy to grow, not particularly demanding, that will keep you fed, that will keep you full, and you can even feed some of your animals with them. Some of them can even be kept in the ground through the winter. Others are storable in root cellars. But roots are your friends. Having a great big field of grain is a lot of work and a lot of processing, but roots can often be dug up, chopped up, cooked, and eaten without all that extra work of processing. As my wife has just reminded me, people often added potatoes in old recipes. If you read old recipe books, you'll find that people added potatoes to their recipes to stretch flour because potatoes were easy to grow, but flour was something that often had to be purchased, so you could stretch the budget by adding a little bit of roots to your grains. Number 3, try not to rely on outside fertilizers. You can make compost, you can grow cover crops, you can save wood ashes. There are a lot of ways to feed your garden for free. I've done an entire video called 7 Ways to Feed Your Garden for Free, and I wrote the book Compost Everything, but it doesn't take that much. You could feed your garden with diluted plant solutions that you've made in your backyard. I call it Dave's Fetid Swamp Water, but there's a lot of names for it. Just basically anaerobic compost tea. Feed your gardens without having to buy stuff. You don't want a big stockpile necessarily of 10-10-10. It's healthier to feed your gardens natural amendments that you make yourself. 3 more honorable mentions, climate permitting. Beans. Dry beans, not just green beans, but dry beans. You don't have to can dry beans, and they're storable and they have a decent amount of protein in them. So beans are a good survival crop if you've got the space for them and pole beans will outproduce bush beans. So just think about that when you're planting. Another good one are pumpkins and winter squash. We grow a lot of these. We grew over 1,000 pounds of pumpkins this year because we can store them, we can eat them through the winter, they keep for months without refrigeration, they don't have to be canned, and they are a survival staple that has proven itself again and again and again. And if you get too many of them, you can just feed them to your pigs. They are super easy to grow usually and store very well. And the final survival crop I want to mention are nut trees. We have some pecan trees, we have black walnut trees, and one of my very favorites, the chestnut tree, because I love the way chestnuts taste. But nuts are high quality fats, high quality food, good, filling, delicious survival food. So for your long-term survival plans, I would definitely add some nut trees as well. Thanks for joining me. You can learn more about survival gardening in my book, Grow or Die, The Good Guide to Survival Gardening, and I invite you to join us over in our school community. We have a survival gardener community that is very active. We have plant swaps for rare and interesting plants, and we have a food forest challenge. We're trying to get 10 people to plant food forests by Halloween. Maybe you will be one of them. Go check it out. I'll put a link to that below. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.